everyone. This is Country Music News International. My name is Nigel Sharpe, and today I'm going to be talking to Rodney Crowell, which is a particular pleasure and honor for me. So just to give you a kind of little bit of background to who you're talking to, I'm an Englishman in Germany. So I moved over here from London. I live near Frankfurt in Germany. Okay. And I came over here to play country music on the American military bases. And
okay, well, there's a long history of that.
There is, yes. Until, unfortunately, of course, they all went home at the end of the century or at the turn of the century. But I'm still here.
Yeah.
And it's very nice for me over Country Music News to kind of get in contact with country music again from the USA. And of course, at the moment, we miss you a lot. Yeah. Anyway, so I know I don't have very much time with you. I'd just like to kind of touch on a couple of older events, if you like, and then come back up to the sort of what's going on at the moment.
Okay.
One thing is, I believe we share the same birth year.
Yeah, well, 1950, right smack in the middle of the 20th century.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So I am slightly older than you because I was born in January. And,
okay.
So the thing about that is, of course, then, you know, I grew up in London around the 60s and the 70s, which was a very exciting time musically.
No kidding.
When I was at college, which is the early 70s, one of the great bands that you could see was Heads, Hands and Feet, featuring this young man on guitar who just blew us all away. And then he went to join Emmylou Harris's hot band. But I think that when Albert joined the hot band, I think you were already there. Is that correct?
That's true. Yes, Albert replaced James Burton in the hot band, and the hot band was great with James Burton. But when Albert joined up, we hit overdrive. And I think you know, the Albert years with the hot band to me were when it was really smoking at its best.
Yeah, I mean,
Albert was had a certain kind of musical alchemy about him. He just he transformed us all, you know. And the great thing is, whenever the hot band was not out touring, Albert and I had this band called Rodney and Albert. And we played the clubs up and down the coast of California. So we had an act for a while, Albert and I, and it was good fun, you know, no rehearsals, long solos and sloppy endings was the basic premise of it. And God, did we have fun.
Yes, I've had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times, particularly at the Frankfurt Music Fair. And I've seen him play any number of times now. Also, when he was up on stage with Eric Clapton, of course, that was kind of strange to see Albert up on stage with Eric. But I think he was better off being the piano player in Eric's band than actually playing guitar. I was always a little bit worried because I've always loved Eric Clapton too. I mean, I saw Eric with the Yardbirds back in the 60s and then with John Mayer's Blues Breakers. And he's always been one of my, you know, influences and one of my favorite guitar players. I was always worried that Albert was just going to blow Eric off the stage if he really got going on the guitar, but it always seemed to just about work out. Just talking.
Well,
quickly.
I personally, I'm an Eric Clapton fan too, and I personally don't need another guitar player around Eric Clapton. It's like, you know, what he chooses to play and the way he chooses to play it is all that needs to be said as far as I'm concerned when I think of Eric Clapton. And in some ways, but with Albert, it's, you know, that country rock California, Southern California. It's like Albert can play with anybody, you know,
Yeah.
and make it come alive, you know, and from Hogan's Heroes to the Hot Band to take your pick, you know, the Everly Brothers, you know, Albert brought it to the Everly Brothers too, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it, you know, all of that said, you know, he's a sweetheart from Herefordshire, you know.
He is, you know, he's always seemed to me to be a person with his feet on the ground and just a love of what he does as a musician, and has never appeared as some kind of, hey, I'm a superstar, you know, with a massive ego or anything like that. He just seems to be someone who can take the spotlight if he needs to, and if he needs to be to the side, then he can do that too. And it doesn't seem to worry him as long as he's got a guitar in his hand.
Well, Baron, yeah, well, Albert, you're right about that. Albert can be very self-effacing, but bear in mind that guitar players like that are like Wild West gunslingers. They may not say much, but when it comes time to show how quick they are on the draw, you can bet there's a confident man there, you know.
Yeah.
And so Albert knows how good he is, and he doesn't mind showing you. And he doesn't mind showing Eddie Van Halen. You know, I've been on stage with Eddie Van Halen, and uh, a, a wide assortment of guitar players. You know, Steve Lukather, Eddie
Oh,
Van
wow.
Halen, Steve Lukather, and Albert Lee on the stage. And to watch the three of those guys say, okay, I heard what you did. Now here's what I'm going to do. And, you know, I'm just over there playing some rhythm guitar and singing a few songs so they can show everybody how good they can play, you know?
Yeah, I'm the guy who's just thankful to be able to listen to it most of the time. Talking about guitars, you've got a lovely, lovely acoustic guitar, the one with the kind of the white pickguard. You've had that, I think, for a very long time. But I can't.
I've had it for about 15 years.
Yeah, I've never been able to figure out what it is.
It is a 1932 Gibson LOO.
Wow.
12 fret, and it's the white pickguard were 1931 and 1932.
Okay.
Mine's 1932, and it's a particularly. It was gifted to me by Sterling Ball, who runs Ernie Ball guitar strings and Music Man guitars. He's my dear friend, and a close friend of Albert's as well. And he gave me that guitar, and I call it Black Betty, and I don't go anywhere. I don't play on a stage without it.
Yeah. Do you know where he actually got it, where he found it? Do you know the history behind it?
I do not know the history where he found it. I just know that I had fallen in love with another Gibson LOO from around 1934 that I tried to buy, tried to steal, tried to shame a friend of mine into giving to me. And then one day I was singing a song at Sterling's wedding, his son's wedding, and it was a Godfather moment, you know, and Sterling was in his tuxedo, but I was just offhandedly telling him this story about, hey man, this guy I know has got this beautiful guitar that I want, and I offered him a very generous amount of money for it. And I literally stole it for about 6 months. But he sent his secretary around to collect it, and I had to give it up. So I'm just, you know, saying, yeah, you know, I love that guitar. And Sterling excused himself for a minute, walked out and came back into the room with that guitar and handed it to me. He says, now, I don't want to hear any more about that other guitar. And the guitar he gave me was better than the one I wanted.
Oh, there you go. What a nice guy.
Yeah, he's a very nice guy. Very generous fellow.
Yeah. Must be nice to have stuff like that kind of in the back room. Anyway, I've got another question about musical instruments. I was watching the video from the Acoustic Classics album, the Shame on the Moon video. Mm-hmm. which is a lovely song. We always love
Yes,
that
sir.
one. And there's all the musicians sort of gathered in the studio, and you hear you on the guitar, and then there's a violin, and then another instrument comes in, and I'm thinking, oh, that's nice. It's a clarinet. And I'm looking around the studio for the clarinet player, but there isn't one. But there is a guy at the back playing some really weird looking instrument. What is that? I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, what's he call? I forget what he calls that. He actually, it has a mouthpiece, and
Yeah.
it's like an accordion and a mouth organ and a uh, God, you know, scuba diving outfit.
Whatever. Yeah.
I forget what you know what I knew at the time. Of course, I asked him. It's Rory Hoffman. He's a multi-instrumentalist
Yeah.
around Nashville who plays. He's brilliant on 40 different instruments, you know, and
Okay.
that one he just brought it to the studio that day, and I said, "Well, what does it sound like?" So that's what he's playing.
I mean, I remember these melodicas, which was like, they also, some of
Sure,
them had like
yes.
a flexible mouthpiece.
Hmm.
So you could like
Yes,
sit it
yeah.
down in front of you and play it like a keyboard. But that sounds like
Hmm.
a harmonica. But this thing sounds like a clarinet. I really thought it was a clarinet.
Yes,
So I don't know.
it's
I've been looking for this online. I cannot find a thing. So
yeah.
I'll keep looking.
Well, you might go to Rory Hoffman, whatever his he probably I'm sure he has a website because he does one 12 days of Christmas on 12 different instruments.
Okay. So let's come. That was fairly recent, wasn't it? The Acoustic Classics album. What was that? 2018,
Well, time passes more quickly than it used to,
doesn't it?
so I
Yeah.
guess I would put that 2017, 18, somewhere in
Okay.
there.
And if I'm correct, the most recent album then is Triage, which came out
Yes, it's
this
correct.
year, earlier this year.
Hmm.
And have you been able to sort of get out and play that album to audiences, or how is it
Yeah,
with
yeah.
for gigs?
I, tou- I, I toured, my band and that I have together right now. We started in late July and finished up about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
We played, I guess we played 40, 50 shows. Maybe 40 shows probably, between in that time span, and we'll pick it up again in the new year and take it through till the late spring.
Yeah.
I have a really eclectic uh, combo right now that I really enjoy working with. And we had a lot of fun, and the audiences were there. We went down into Mississippi and Louisiana and Arkansas and Texas, New York City, and we covered the eastern United States. In the coming year, we'll cover the western United States before we bow out on Triage and move on to something else.
Okay. So are you having like a Christmas break now?
Well, I'm going to do the Christmas show with Vince and Amy Grant
Okay.
at the Ryman Auditorium. I'm going to be the musical sorbet before they get into their elaborate Christmas show. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to be around the house. I just drive down to the Ryman Auditorium and play 20
So
minutes and come home.
yeah, I was going to say, where is the house? You're based in or around Nashville?
Yeah, I live south of Nashville,
Okay.
a good half hour.
Yeah, I was looking on your website. You've got these gigs at the Ryman Auditorium next week, I think it is. Is that this show with Vince and Amy?
Yeah, it is. It's their Christmas show. They've done it for years and years and
Okay.
years. The 12 Days of Christmas with Vince and Amy. A few years back, I became their guest opening artist, and I take kind of I made a Christmas album in 2018, was released, and so I had a group of sarcastic, kind of grumpy Christmas songs, and Vince and Amy have such a great sense of humor. they're happy for me to go out there and insult the audience a little
Yeah,
bit with my grumpy Christmas songs.
wind them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, now these are the things. This is where I get like really jealous, because these are the sort of things that we really don't get over here. And you kind of really miss it. Um, we're supposed to be coming over at the end of February next year for the CRS in Nashville. And that's going to be the first time that I've ever been in Nashville in my life. I mean, I've been to the United States a number of times, but it'll be the first time for me in Nashville. So, and you think,
Well,
wow.
two-sided on that. I wish you could have experienced Nashville when it was a quaint little town
Mhm.
25 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It is now one of the fastest growing cities, in the United States. There's a facelift going on, that high rise is going in. People are climate change is sending people from the West Coast to Tennessee and Texas, and that's for
Okay.
sure. And so it's part of the quaint little Music Row part of Nashville that was, from Hank Williams to Johnny Cash in his peak. That's no longer here, really. I mean, the
Yeah.
streets are here, but corporations have taken over. But that's the world we live in now. But
It does seem to be
it's
kind of,
still Nashville. It's
yeah.
still Nashville.
Yeah, let's come back to Quarantine. It was a Songs from Quarantine, the latest one, the volume 2. The song that from you on that album, Heavenly Day. And I was listening to this, and it kind of is a nice chord sequence right at the beginning, and it's doing everything you would kind of expect it to do in terms of the progression. And then it starts doing things that you don't expect it to do. Is it a fair sort of comment to make that this is typical for your songwriting? You do surprise people with the structure, the musical structure of the songs that you put together. Is that something that you strive to do?
I guess sometimes it's an instinct it's an instinct, I suppose, that I do have that D major sus D7 thing happening, uh, and I say, okay, that's all well and good. That's sort of everybody's talking at me, so we know where that chord progression
Mm-hmm.
originally came into our consciousness. And I'll say to myself, well, look, I got to go somewhere with this, if, you know, what am I going to do? And I think just asking myself that question, it opens up into that big vocal chorus thing that happens on that song.
Yeah.
And I think like Triage, the opening on Triage, I'm kind of limping along with this kind of ballad thing about I've been a liar, I've been untrue, and I say to myself, how long am I going to be able to sustain this and keep people entertained? Whoops, I better grab this big fat E minor and get some energy going. you know, I think it's just instinct. It's
Okay.
just instinct. This needs to go somewhere.
Right. Well, it's a good instinct to have. I mean, the other thing that totally fascinated me was with Shame on the Moon. You threw out all the lyrics apart from the chorus and rewrote the song.
Yeah.
That's a very brave thing to do for such a successful song. I mean, it's one of Bob
Yeah,
Seger's.
well, I was never happy with the last verse.
Right. Okay.
Even on when I told Bob Seger, I said, well, what about that last verse? I said, I recorded it myself, but I was not had. I always thought I shouldn't have until I wrote a really good last verse. He said, oh, it's perfect, I said, okay, well, yeah, you're making a lot of money, and so am I. Good for us. But I was never happy with the last verse, and I finally realized, and I tried to rewrite the last verse for 25 years. And then one day I said, oh, I get it. I'm trying to write a last verse to a song that already exists. I know what I'll do. I'll just write another version of it. And
Yeah.
so it became Shame on the Moon Redux. And I purposely made it sort of Leonard Cohenish, and
Okay.
made it a spoken word where it is, whereas I wasn't trying to recreate the original by singing the melody the way I did. I turned it into a spoken word piece. I kept I kept the chorus, and it's just here's the thing. The new verses that I wrote are technically better written, better rhyme scheme, more concrete narrative,
Okay.
but the original works better. So there you go.
Well, it certainly did for Bob Seger, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
I learned by rewriting it that way that the original was flawed from my perspective, but it wasn't flawed musically,
yeah.
and the song spoke for itself. So I'm done with it. I've gone back to performing the original version.
Oh, okay. What about new songs? Are
Ton
you
of
going to
them.
be writing over Christmas or
Oh, I'm
anything?
writing all the time.
Yeah.
I have a one thing I can say on my own behalf is that I'm productive, you know, and I got a bunch of songs. There's, I release new product more quickly than perhaps I should because, when I'm releasing a record every year and to year and a half, it's like the outlets for promotion. And they say, well, we just did a piece on him, 16 months ago, so we don't have any room for him now. So ideally, probably I should release a record every 4 years,
Hmm.
but I'm going to release them every year to year and a half because I have that many songs.
Well, that
And
sounds
I
good to
don't,
me.
yeah, and it's all good, it's there's no set reason for how anybody should do anything in this business. You just express yourself, try to tell the truth, do the best work you can, let it go, and move on to the next thing. Speaking of which, I have to do.
I know. I was just going to say, which is a nice way to sort of close us out for today.
Yeah,
Rodney, thanks so much for
yeah,
taking the time to speak
my,
with us. We really, really appreciate it.
my pleasure.
It's a great pleasure for me personally to be able to talk to you. I wish you
Yeah,
all the
my
very
pleasure.
best, especially over Christmas
Yeah,
and Happy New Year and all that kind of stuff. And the
yeah,
successful sort of second part of the Triage tour. And
yeah.
and if you do manage to come up with, hard product for quarantine, volumes 1 and 2.
Well, I'll be talking over to the board about what we're going to do about that, and the idea started with you, so
Yeah,
all best to you.
I'll be the first customer,
Yeah, good
be at the
man.
front of the line. Okay,
Yes,
Rodney,
sir.
I
Well,
won't keep you any longer. Thanks again, and you take very good care of yourself.
I shall
Thanks.
do, and you do the same. All best. Happy Christmas.
You too. Bye.
Bye.